I made a horrible real estate decision and it ended up costing me $1 million check. I'm gonna tell you the story in today's video. So guys, please forgive me if I look a little tired. I actually came to this realization in the middle of the night, and needless to say, it was tough for me to continue sleeping, so I haven't slept since. If this is your first time to the channel, my name is Hassan. I'm a real estate agent in Vancouver, and I make educational real estate content to help you in your real estate journey. I also make content to help you make your move in and around Vancouver. If that sounds interesting to you, book me in the Calendly link or send me a message. All right, guys, so we're gonna go back to my first ever real estate purchase to see how this story began, how I essentially gave up $1 million at the end of the day. So we're going back to about 2003, 2004. At the time, I was living with my parents in Richmond. I was about 23 or 24 years old, living in the basement at my parents' home. And long story short, they had to make a move. So they were gonna move out of Richmond and they were moving to North Delta. And now I was in a situation where I could A, move with them, or I could B, move out and purchase my own place. I had saved up a very small down payment, so I was in a position to be able to purchase an entry-level condo. So as I was making my decision about what I should do, I knew I wasn't gonna move to North Delta. I wanted to start my own life, my own journey, and also I was very much tied to Richmond. I had grown up there since I was 5 years old. It was all I had never known, and I definitely knew that I did not want to move to North Delta. So I had made the decision, and now I was trying to decide exactly where I wanted to move to. So as I was going through the real estate buying process, the search, I guess you will, I honed in on two different areas and two different properties. One of them, of course, was in Richmond, and the other one was in downtown Vancouver. I'm going to tell you a little bit about each property so you get an idea. The downtown Vancouver property, it was in obviously at the time a very fun happening location to be. The building was a 6 or a 7 story. It was an older building similar to the one I was looking at in Richmond. It had a lot of tenants in it. It needed a lot of work. It needed flooring, it needed paint, it needed new appliances. It was in pretty rough shape. And for a first-time buyer, often it's kind of tough to put yourself into that type of a scenario because you have these visions of what your first place is gonna look like, and it wasn't that. So that was one property that I was looking at. I really liked the prospect of living in downtown Vancouver. That was really exciting for me, especially at the age I was at. So that was property one. Property two was, as I mentioned, in Richmond, and this was the home that was ready to go. So it had brand new paint, it had brand new flooring. At the time, carpet was still the flooring of choice. So it had brand new carpet, new paint. I wouldn't have to do anything with it. Where I was living in Richmond, this was actually right around the corner. It was about a 5-minute drive from where I was living at the time. So everything about that place screamed comfort and comfort zone to me. It was a very comfortable place for me to be. Now, when it comes to, obviously it's a big decision for me. I'm discussing with my parents, and my parents thought it was better for me to choose the Richmond home, to stay in Richmond, because truthfully, they thought that if I moved downtown, I was gonna become a partier. And truth is, they were probably right. If I moved downtown, I was probably gonna expand my social life. I was gonna have a lot more fun. So they weren't the reason swaying my decision, but obviously I wanted to take their input in at the same time. So I'm deciding between these two properties now. The Richmond property actually had rental restrictions at the time, so it was very end user friendly or homeowner friendly, I guess you could say. And it was less expensive than the Vancouver condo. Now, I could afford both of them. I had the mortgage approval for either one of them, but I was a very conservative thinker at the time, extremely conservative. I'm still risk averse, but I was as conservative as I've ever been when it came to large investments. So I'm looking at a Richmond condo that keeps me in my comfort zone, in my comfort area. It allowed me to be close to my friends, close to my social activities, etc. And then I'm looking at a higher price condo that's going to take a little bit more work in downtown Vancouver that's in the much better location. So long story short, I end up going with the Richmond condo. Again, I wanted to stay in my comfort zone, and I passed up the downtown condo. So let's fast forward and look at where both of these properties ended up and and what ended up happening and how I came to this realization in the middle of the night. So like I said, I woke up in the middle of the night today and I don't know why my mind went in this direction. So oftentimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night and my brain will just start working as if the day is beginning and I have to start thinking about real estate. And anyways, I was like, I wonder what happened to that condo that I was looking at purchasing, but I ended up going for the Richmond one. So I started Googling around and I see that this condo, it was located at Burrard and Thurlow. I start Googling to try and remember what the address was. I see the name of the building and I see that it was sold in a strata windup in 2016. Now, I won't go too deep into what a strata windup is, but essentially what it is when the entire building gets sold to a developer because the land is now more valuable than the building itself, essentially. So a lot of areas, for example, they may shift from mid-rise zoning to high-rise. As land values increase, these buildings that are either townhomes or mid-rise, they tend to really increase in value because a developer wants to purchase them and purchase high. So you can imagine Burrard and Thurlow for a high-rise building, the value of this real estate. And how it works is when you go for a strata windup, I'll do a separate video to go over all the details of strata windup, but when you go through a strata windup, at the end of the day, the developer writes a big check and it gets divided up based on square footage of each unit. So this building, I start going down the rabbit hole, bought by a very prominent developer here in Vancouver. I think it was 2016 or 2017. They paid $167 million for this building. So $167 million for this building. The total amount of units in the building, 160. If it was flat, if it was a flat division of the money, I would have foregone $1,030,000 in that check that would have came to me 2016, 2017. The unit I was looking at was a one bedroom in Den. It was one of the larger one beds. So my check would have likely been around $1 million for that unit. So let's talk about what ended up happening. I bought the safe pick. I went with the Richmond condo, which again, rental restrictions, end user friendly. I didn't have to put in any work. B location, right? So we're just talking about an A location. Now I'm telling you about a B, maybe a C plus location in this Richmond condo. So what ended up happening is I held on to the condo, and in 2017 or 2018, it was probably 2018 when it started, this strata windup process that I was just talking about, I was actually proposing that for my building in Richmond because we had a lot of significant repairs that needed to be done. And so I had proposed this strata windup to try and get a developer to purchase our piece of land. Long story short, it didn't end up working out, and I got into a scenario where I purchased a pre-sale property that completed in 2020. So when 2020 rolled around, end of 2019, I had to sell my Richmond condo. Now my Richmond condo, I had purchased it at the time, you guys are gonna laugh, I had purchased it for $190,000 in 2003 or 2004 it might have been. So I had to sell this condo now because I had a pre-sale completing. Now this condo, it had a lot of significant work that needed to be done on it, like I mentioned. It had rental restrictions. There was a short period of time before COVID hit where the market wasn't piping hot. It was actually relatively slow in January, February, March. And actually April. And then when COVID hit, May, June, it started picking up. I needed to sell my property in Q1, January, February, March. So I renovated the property. I put it on the market. It has rental restrictions at the time, so my amount of buyers is already small. There was work that needed to happen to my unit to the tune of $60,000. There was a quote on the table. So I was a little bit freaked out that I wasn't going to be able to sell it. Now, had there not been rental restrictions, I would have been able to rent it and move into the pre-sale, which of course just changed about a few months ago. So anyways, I had to sell in 2020. I had to sell at a discount because there were rental restrictions. And long story short, I ended up selling it for $350,000. So rather than take the A location, the property that needed a bit of work, the property that would have pushed me out of my comfort zone, the property that I could still afford, except I would have had to change my lifestyle more, I stayed in my comfort zone and it cost me that $1 million check. So this is still fresh. So I'm still coping with it, I'm dealing with it. I think we all have a story where hindsight is 2020 and we could have done something differently. But in this case, and I do want to mention, none of this is financial advice. I'm not saying that you should do things based on this story, but for me personally, I should have pushed myself out of my comfort zone. I should have taken the larger mortgage myself personally and said, you know what, this is an area I know is going to be strong. It's the better area to be. Yes, I'm probably going to have to cut back in more areas. Yes, it's slightly riskier, but look at what that decision ended up costing me. So if you're looking for me for the rest of the day, I'm going to be sitting down in my bathtub with the shower on, turned in the other direction so the rain is actually smacking me in the back of the head. But if you're looking for me tomorrow or any other day and you want to talk about real estate and how we can make sure that you don't make these levels of mistakes, reach out to me, send me a message. You can book me in the Calendly link as well below. But if there's one underlying message or learning from this, it's don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. Nothing ever good came from the comfort zone, I think is what they say. It's okay to take calculated risks, provided they make sense for you. And also, don't let other people influence your decision making. It's okay to take people's opinions, but at the end of the day, you have to make your own decision. And in this case, I made my own decision. Even though people around me thought that Richmond was a better choice for me, I still was obviously empowered to make the decision. But just make decisions for yourself, because at the end of the day, you're gonna have to live with the result of your decisions. So guys, there's my story. I hope you enjoyed this video at my expense. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, especially if you've been watching for a little bit. That way you don't miss a future video. But thanks so much for watching and have a wonderful day.